Welcome back, folks. Joining me in the studio today, I have Karina Karn. And Karina is a UK-based fractional CMO with more than 14 years of experience across the UK and the US. Her background spans technology, software as a service, and real estate, where she has seen firsthand how difficult it can be for companies to turn interest into real adoption. She specializes in helping founders close the gap between product, positioning, and conversion by improving how their offer is understood, trusted, and acted on. She is also the author of 2 books on consumer psychology focused on how people make decisions and what drives them to choose and stay with a brand. Karina, thank you so much for joining Code and Concrete. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for having me.
Well, let's dive right into your background. What was your journey like getting into marketing? And I believe you did some real estate as well.
Yes, that's right. So I'm a UK-based fractional SMO, and I've been working in marketing for over 14 years. So I started in international brands, corporates. I was escalating. I became a manager, and then recently I became a CMO for a B2B SaaS company. So I decided after that to have my own boutique marketing agency, which I operate. I'm based in the UK, so I operate with clients in the UK and in the US as well. So yeah, my background spans tech, SaaS, and real estate, where I've seen firsthand how difficult it is for companies to turn interest into the actual adoption. And yeah, so that's why I found it very interesting to discuss this topic today, because I think I can provide some many insights for the audience.
Certainly. And we'll unpack all of those different perspectives because marketing, product adoption, it's all very important in real estate, but it's very misunderstood. Now, I'm interested in your experience in real estate. What was your role in this industry?
Of course, yeah. So marketing manager. So I was managing the adoption, onboarding, supporting clients, campaigns, and I seen quite many patterns between onboarding, adoption, evaluation, and where do they hesitate, where do they doubt about the products. Because of that, because I've been working in many industries as well, I wanted, that's how I started with my idea to write books as well, because of those patterns in that industry. And I wanted to help founders, CMOs as well in the industry, to help them to overcome those issues, those delays with the customer journey, the user journey.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So one trend that I see with prop tech companies is that their products are really strong, but they don't get adopted. This could be a product issue, it could be an industry issue. And I would like to hear your perspective and maybe what could we do to better break down what a product can actually do and how people would use it?
Of course, yeah. So the problem is that it's most products are actually solids. The breakdown happens at understanding level. Users don't know what they are looking at. Real estate buyers, for example, are not technical, so they rely on familiarity, clarity. If something feels unclear, they don't engage. So that's why that confusion that they start at the very beginning, right, leads to that hesitation that I mentioned before, because it's not certain at the very beginning, right, at the first minutes, right, to approach the product, right. It's that hesitation that breaks that adoption, because think about something: people don't adopt what they don't understand, right? So yeah, that's basically it. It's very simple, but it's hard to put it into words, right?
So when talking about real estate products, how could we start to simplify the purpose and the messaging? How could we make that easier to understand? What should companies do?
Of course, yeah. So the first thing is that try to narrow down your options when presenting that. When you are, for example, your sales team when they are talking with customers or on your websites, social channels, everywhere, right? It's very important to just offer a few options, very clear, not overloaded. And obviously, you need to communicate your message aligned with your identity that fully resonates with that customer need that it's looking for, right? We have problems to be solved, right? So if you communicate with clarity, with a few options, talking always with that sense of, okay, I'm talking with the pain point of that potential targets, right? So those few things, even though it looks very simple to say, but you will be surprised how many founders don't follow this process, basically.
A lot of founders just focus on the solution and they don't think about the problem so much. Do you
Exactly.
agree that more attention should be put on the pain point, the problem that your customer has?
Absolutely, 100%. Because the thing is, everybody has problems and we're in a rush to solve them, right? The market is already saturated, right? So because we compete in a market that is already very competitive, millions of products are out there. Your competition is very broad as well. So that's why you always need to, in order to differentiate yourself, right? You need to speak with that language, that tone, that communication that resonates with that potential target. Otherwise, it's very hard to be differentiated in that saturated markets. Always pain points, narrow down your offer option, your package, and always those keywords that you need to use, always those needs to resonate with that target that you are reaching.
Right. So as customers are looking at products in the market, they're just looking oftentimes, and we can't confuse that with adoption. So for these founders, how do they know if a customer has genuine interest and is looking to use this solution and that leads to adoption, or if they're just looking around? Is there a way to differentiate that customer's sentiment?
Of course, yeah. So there are a few ways. So looking behavior is passive. Yeah, adoption intent, right, creates that movement. Real interest shows progression. Users move from one step to the next without friction. So they ask a specific questions, right? Not like not what is this, right? But how would this work for me? They try to connect the products to their workflow. They are already imagining the usage, right? Time between actions is shorter. And yeah, so they involve other stakeholders early as well, not just one person exploring. So yeah, they engage with onboarding on next steps, but not just the top of funnel content, if it
Hmm.
makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. The what versus how, asking what is this product versus how do I implement this into my business. That's when you know that they are actually thinking about how they could use it and determining whether you have a good strategy to work it in to their business. So
Exactly.
looking at that sales cycle, starting with a touch point, then you're helping decipher how they could use this across the business, and then you start to close. Real estate tends to have longer sales cycles than most typical software. So in that conversion funnel, where do you see a lot of the friction currently, and how can companies account for that?
Of course, yeah. So you are right. It's very long journey to make that decision because it's a complex product, right? So the friction usually starts very early at the point of understanding. Yeah, so users don't fully get what the product does or where it fits. Yeah, so and also there are multiple stakeholders which slow down everything. So each one sees value differently. Yeah. the messaging rarely, right, speaks to all of them. There is no clear, let's put it like that, no clear internal owner, and the responsibility is diffuse. Decisions get delayed, and as I said before, too much information too soon all the time. Instead of guiding, companies, they tend to overwhelm all the time with so much information. And users, the problem is that obviously users don't know what to prioritize, isn't it? So there is a mismatch between the promise and the experience. And yeah, so what they expect from the products, those users, is just that, and what they actually see is that the onboarding is often too heavy on that stage, and instead of reducing the efforts, as founders, right, they add more work for those users to understand everything. And yeah, so it's mainly on the evaluation part of that, the mid funnel, where they hesitate. Many companies, specifically for pro tech, they really struggle with that.
I guess
Yeah.
briefly, sorry to cut you off, we should define the different stages of that customer funnel for folks who aren't familiar. How would you define each step?
Of course, yeah. So I will try to explain it very simple. Normally, it starts with the awareness phase, yeah, which is the top of the funnel, right? And then, and this is when someone realizes they have a problem, right? They are not looking for a product yet. They are just trying to understand what's going on. Then comes consideration. They start exploring solutions, comparing options, yeah, trying to understand what fits their needs. Next, it's the decision, where this is where they evaluate seriously, looking at risk, effort, and impact. Yeah. And then it comes the onboarding, first interaction with the product, basically. This is where expectations meet the actual reality, where most drop-off happens, yeah? And finally is the retention phase, which is the loyalty part. This is about the continued use, turning the product into into part of the workflow, yeah? And yeah, each stage is not just a step; it's a change in how they use things. What they need to feel confident moving forward.
Looking at the end of that life cycle when they're moving forward into using the product, you note that a lot of users, although they sign up, they might pay, they don't actually use the product, so they don't have adoption. What do you think should happen in those first 24 hours or 48 hours to ensure that user adoption succeeds and the onboarding is successful?
You will be surprised how common is this in first, the user should know exactly what to do. And there is so much ambiguity. There is not a clear starting point. Second, they need to experience value quickly. It's not all about understanding the product. It's they need to feel the benefits, a quick win early on, right? Third, I will say it's reduce effort as much as possible. I mean, like no long setup, no complex steps. The product should guide them, not expect them to figure things out. And that's the problem. They need a clear direction in every step. Connect the products to the real workflow, yeah? You need to show how this fits into what they already do. And yeah, again, don't overwhelm them with too many features too early, because that creates that drop off. When it works, it's just fast understanding, quick action, visible value. And when it fails, it feels more like there is confusion, delay, there is no clear outcome. So yeah, if users don't experience value early on, right? That's what I would say when you have a SaaS business, right? So they don't build the habits to come back, and that's the stage where you lose those users. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about the experience.
Mm-hmm. So early, quick wins that satisfy the customer, and then make it very easy to use the platform. What method have you found is the best for helping customers become familiar with the platform? Would you say that it's demo videos, documentation, onboarding, where a member from the team is walking them through the platform, built-in tutorials? What do you think is the most effective?
Well, it's very common. Companies use quite a lot webinars, but I will tell you, there isn't one single method that works for everyone. Of course, every business is different, and the effectiveness, right, depends on how complex the product is and how much behavior change is required. Yeah, because keeping in mind that what matters is reducing that effort for the user, right? The easier it is to get started, the better. Because, for example, for a product that is simple, right, like built-in guidance works well, or with short prompts, it's enough, or step-by-step insights the products, yeah? But, however, for complex products, it's very important to have the sales team behind it, right? Because that make a big difference. Someone guiding, right, early, and helping them connect it to their workflow. And yeah, so videos, documentation are useful, but usually it's a bit passive. Users don't actually engage unless they need help. But anyway, the most effective approach is usually a mix, but centered around one thing, guiding the user to the first success. Yeah. So the goal is not to explain the product. Yeah, it's to help the user achieve something quickly.
Right.
And yeah, so the faster someone experience value, as I said before, the faster they become familiar with it.
And a portion of this is also trust. So, how could companies build trust with their clients early on?
Of course, yeah. So there is a huge debate around it because we are, as human beings, right? When we invest in anything in life, right, we need to make an investment, right? And that's where the trust triggers. Because how could we trust that our needs are going to be satisfied? Yeah. So there are a few things that I will say. Trust starts with transparency, clarity. If something is hard to understand, it creates that doubt, yeah, that delay. You need to make it obvious what the product does and who it's for. And you shouldn't have any ambiguity in terms of keywords, the way that the messaging in your website, when you communicate with customers, you need to align those expectations from the very beginning. What they see before sign up, right, should match what they experience after. Yeah, to literally this is to reduce the perceived risk. Yeah, and yeah, like show familiar patterns. And don't feel too complex for them to understand you. And of course, another thing that I always say, show proof where possible, not just features or claims, because that's where people will believe you, because there is that social proof. And yeah, so trust grows when users feel they understand what's happening and what to expect.
Mhm.
It's that thing that people don't trust what feels confusing. It's more about even if the product is good. Yeah.
One of the things that creates confusion is that the people who are designing products don't really know how operators work day to day. So, what are the most common mismatches you've seen between what a product is offering and how operators work, whether that's in prop tech or other verticals?
Of course, yeah. So, very good question. So, I will tell you, products are designed for the ideal workflows. Yeah. Those operators, right, those teams work in messy conditions sometimes. They are like common mismatches that I've seen between products and how these operators rights work is that too many features, not enough relevance. Teams only needs a few things to work well, right? That's it. And the thing is, sometimes they need a speed and no exploration. And keep in mind one thing, like tools require behavior change upfront instead of fitting into that existing habits, right? Because the thing is, language is too technical and abstract, yeah? So those things need to think in tasks, not systems. I mean, the UX designer or the technical person that is behind the design of the onboarding. And yeah, so operators need to focus on the outcomes, yeah, and products needs to focus on the capabilities. That's it. Because the thing is, I always call them like builders, yeah. They need to optimize what's possible, yeah, optimize what is practical as well. So basically, the gap is not in the product. People think, oh, it's because my product is not the best on the market, or is the competition. No, it's in how it fits into the real behavior, right? If a product doesn't adapt to that user, yeah, the user won't adapt to that product. Obviously, it doesn't matter whatever you do. It's all about the perception that users have in front of that product that you're presenting.
What's a good way for founders to gather feedback about the customer experience? What tools are being used the most, where it's hard to implement in the workflows? What's the best way to get real feedback, not just opinions, but something that is constructive and could help make the platform better?
Of course, yeah. So there are obviously multiple, and the most valuable feedback comes from the conversations, calls that you're having with those users, and speaking to those early and often, all the time. Not just surveys or on the chats or emails. It's all about constant communication with them, and observe that behavior, not just opinions, right? Many companies, what they do is they just send an email asking about their user experience, what do they think, if there is anything that they would like to add up, right? But what users say, it's one thing, and when they experience, it's another. So you need to look at where users drop off. That's the first stage. Yeah. That usually reveals that friction better than any feedback, I will say. And if you do, so you need to keep the feedback loops short, collect that insight quickly, and you need to make action in very, very soon, because the sooner that you do it, right, you will understand, you will see that churn rate that it's very high. You will be that reduction, because the problem that I see on onboarding is that many times you don't ask for that feedback. You don't know what is going on, and you assume things. You make assumption, and that's the problem, because you think that maybe it's your product that is not sufficient for those to cover those needs. And it's not at all. It's because it's maybe the onboarding, or it's anything that you were not even familiar with. Having that call or email to gather that information, that data, you can improvements with your team to apply those changes that you need.
I'm glad you mentioned that what users say versus what they experience is different. It reminded me of the Henry Ford quote that if he had asked people what they wanted, people were riding horses, they would have said faster horses. They would not have said a car. So what people say they want versus what they actually need is different. How do you think that influences product development? Maybe customers say that they want something fixed, but they actually need to change their behavior, and it's not the product that needs to change, right?
Of course.
The other perspective here. What do you think about that?
So the thing is, what users say reflects their current reality. Yeah. What they are living at that moment is not necessarily the best solution, right? So they describe problems using what they already know, but not what's possible. Yeah. So keep in mind one thing: if you build only based on what users say, you risk improving the wrong thing, right? Or staying too close to the current states. Yeah, because behavior is a strong signal than opinion, right? Like what users struggle with, where they stop, and what they avoid. Yeah, all those things. Anyway, a good product development, right, interprets those signals early on. It doesn't follow them literally, right? That data that you gather, that feedback that you gather, right, is very important, but you need to interpret that, because sometimes it's not what they actually, it's not what they need, it's actually what they want, and what they need is what you need to find out to make those changes.
That actually leads into my next question, which is, as companies mature, they tend to add more features and more services for their customers, but that can introduce complexity. So what should product owners and founders be, or business owners be looking at to determine if new features that they are adding is creating more friction? Is there maybe some data that we should be evaluating?
The thing is, the problem is that many companies, right, when they develop and they grow, right, they want to introduce all the features, all the specs, right, and which is very good, but at the same time, people get overloaded. There are so many options. So I always say to those companies, try to narrow down your options, and just present what is the most popular option. If you know that a feature, it's a bestseller, it's working very well, right? You need to focus on that, because the product is doing more, right? But it's not helping, right? So what founders should focus, it's they need to focus on prioritize the clarity of adding features, keep one core use case strong, right? Simplify how the value is presented, not just what exists. And also, I will say reduce decisions for the user, guide them instead of expanding to more features. It's all about that, the user experience, because at the end of the day, more features don't actually always create more value. They often create more friction.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, always select the ones that are popular and you have traction. The rest, just leave them for like upsell or something that you can sell later on the customer journey. Otherwise, you will overwhelm them. Unless if it's something new that you want to launch, that's totally a different scenario. But as a general basis, try to always present what is more popular, and it's working.
Right. That makes sense. One of my last questions. So, I mean, every product has its strengths and weaknesses. Do you think it's better to focus on the strengths and make them really good, or to focus on weaknesses and make them better? Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, it's very complex about this. The problem is that as founders, we always think that our product is the best. You don't have any problem. It's working well. That's why I always say, always gather feedback to test that product on the market. Yeah. So work on the product that is working at the moment, and work in parallel with those products, right, that are weak on the market. So it really depends on where the weakness is, right? If the weakness create that friction, right, that will block the understanding, or will literally stop the usage, right? It needs to be fixed first before being out there on your product portfolio, especially early in the journey. Because if users struggle to get started, right, strength doesn't matter. Once the basis work right, then the strength should be amplified. So, in a simple way to see is that fix what blocks adoption, and then scale what drives value. users don't users want experience strength, right? If they never get past the first steps, right, they will abandon. So yeah, a strong products, yeah, that's hard to use, won't grow. Obviously, that's common sense. But a simple product works. It will work in the future ultimately.
Okay, makes sense. Repair the holes in the ship before you put on
That's right.
faster sails. All right, wonderful. Well, my last questions to you. How can people get in touch, and what should they be working with you on? I don't think we dove too much into your business side of things, or the roles or the assistance that you offer. So maybe enlighten us there, and then how people could leverage your skills.
Of course, yeah. So yeah, I have my boutique in London. So I work with founders, B2B SaaS, internationally, UK and the US. You can the easiest way is through LinkedIn. You can reach me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active, right? I actually work with those companies, with those founders as well, especially in complex spaces like real estate as well, protect, or any other SaaS, right? When they are seeing that strong interest, right, but low conversion or low adoption. Yeah. So I typically help them with the go-to-market strategy or the product marketing as well, and the conversion optimization, yeah, and also a part of the life cycle and the retention strategy as well for those founders.
Okay, got it. Well, I will have links to your LinkedIn, and I have your website as well, and your other social medias. So that those will be in the show notes, so that folks can reach out and learn more about what you do and any of the insight that you offer across going to market or product development and prop tech. I encourage people to reach out. As we wrap up here, is there anything that we didn't get to touch on that you want to mention?
All good. I would like to also mention that I have two books that I brought, and I would like to encourage people. If they are very straightforward, easy, and practical to understand, they are all about consumer psychology, and also they have a practical way as well that they can use for their businesses as a founder.
Are those available on your website?
My website and on Amazon as well.
Okay, wonderful. Well, folks can, so it's karinakarn.com, is that right? That's your
That's
website?
right. Yeah, that's
Okay,
my website.
wonderful. So folks will be able to go to your website, find your books and your other resources. All right. Well, Karina, this has been a insightful conversation talking about product, which I always say founders don't really know the product as well as they think they do, and they especially don't understand the problems that they're solving. Sometimes, not all the time, but it's tricky. Consumer behavior and psychology is tricky, so it's always good to learn more about it. I thank you so much for this conversation, and of course to all the folks who tuned in and listened. We encourage you to leave a like, 5 stars, follow the show, support speakers and guests like Karina and all the wonderful folks in the built environment that we bring on. So, Karina, thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for having me.
All right. All the best then.
Thank you.